Thank you for listening to My Best 11 Pod. We are currently accepting applications for advertisement and sponsorships. You can reach us at My Best 11 Pod or mybest11pod@gmail.com. Thank you.
Welcome to another episode of My Best 11 podcast. Fantastic to have a couple of players on today. Marv, as always, giving us his perception on things and grilling the players. And it's fantastic as well. The reception we've had so far from all of our audience is great. And I know that they will love this guest. Today we have Matthew Upson, who is joining us on this podcast. Of course, an ex-teammate, played one game for Luton. I wish he'd have played a few more for Luton Town, but then went on to play for a number of Premier League clubs, which I'm sure we'll get into coming onto the team. Welcome, Matthew. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm very well. I just going back to your intro, you mentioned Marv grilling the player. That wasn't what we discussed, Marv, a grilling. It's surely just a friendly chat was how this was explained, and now I'm being told it's a grilling.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, but I think Andrew got things a little bit wrong. Played one game? It was 2 minutes, Andrew. He come on a sub for 2 minutes, right? Rotherham. That isn't a game, all right? 2 minutes.
Hey, it was some 2 minutes, wasn't it? Must have been some performance in that 2 minutes. I don't know if I touched it. I think I just headed it and cleared one, hooked one up the line. That was it.
It was a header and it cleared it off the line. But It's a big 2 minutes. You're right. It's a big 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I think statistically, it's quite well advertised and documented. You went to Arsenal, obviously, for 2 million. So does that mean your time is effectively worth £1 million per minute?
Well, as Marv's outlined, that would suggest that, wouldn't it? So it wasn't me that said that. Marv's just made that clear.
Fantastic. So what we like to do is we start off our guests going through their formation, and then we move on to the starting 11 team, and then we move on to the best manager coach that you have ever played under. And then Marv's got a few Luton specific questions, and also finding out a bit more what you're doing now, because some of our listeners aren't in the UK, obviously you see on Sky Sport. So I will hand straight over to you, because what we like to do is hear from the guests. They're not here to listen to me, maybe here to listen to Marv a little bit more. So I'll hand straight over to you, Matthew. What is your preferred formation, obviously being a central defender coming through the ranks?
Personal choice of formation. I always enjoy playing in a back four, probably the most. I'd say that's the majority of my career was spent playing in a centre-back pairing. Even though with three at the back, I could lend myself to a left side there, but I enjoy playing in a back four. So I think the formation I'm going to choose for my all-time best 11 is a bit of a throwback standard 4-4-2. 2 banks of four and two up front, maybe a 4-4-1-1 at times, with a striker dropping into the midfield and dropping a bit deeper, but that's going to be my formation.
Fantastic. And do you think that's what you grew up with? Do you think that's what changes players' perceptions? Is that literally what it is? Or is it more defender? Because we've noticed throughout the people we've had, attackers go kind of, I'll have 2 at the back, and they're going to be wing backs. Whereas you might be obviously defender. Is that what it is as well?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I did mainly grow up on that formation. Probably when I started, learning the game and through the youth team and into my early years, that was the preferred formation. Obviously, now we've got lots of different variations, but you tend to find it does do a full circle, doesn't it? And all of a sudden, that 4-4-2 starts to now look a bit more. It comes and goes depending on the time and what systems are more favourable. But I would say I quite like a 4-4-3 to play in as well. I like having 3 midfield and then an attacking 3 with out and out wide players is quite enjoyable. But the players I've picked lends itself to a 4-4-2.
Moving on. So who's your goalkeeper? Obviously you played under a number of goalkeepers. Again, people listening at home or in the car or wherever it is, Matthew will give us a few clues, a few tips, and then see if you can guess it. And then obviously he'll give us away the answer. The
2 goalkeepers that I was toying between both played for club and country. One of them was probably, I didn't play as many games with him because it was earlier on in my career. He was at Arsenal. He was big. He had a ponytail at times. There you go. Am I giving it away?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is that the one you've gone for?
Seaman?
David Seaman. David Seaman's my goalkeeper. Robert Green was my other one that came close. Also,
so you played with him at West Ham, didn't you, as well?
That's right. I spent a lot of time with. I played more appearances with Greeny than David Seaman. But there was something about David Seaman. He just had such a presence on the pitch. He was quite a big figure, and his decision making is the best I've seen in terms of goalkeeper that I've played with. He might not have been the most athletic that I've played with, even though it wasn't a problem for him. But his decision making in angles and positioning in and around the goal was just absolutely top notch.
What's it like when you have that defenders, obviously when you have got that good a goalkeeper behind you, especially being a young man playing at Arsenal? Did he guide you? Did he give you confidence, or was he pretty happy to hammer you when you did a mistake, or was it a mixture of all of them?
Yeah, it'd give you a bit of stick, but it was a very, I don't know if you see him speak or remember him, or see him talk now, he's got such a calming presence as well. It was almost like
Mate, like
he had that, yeah, exactly like Marv. Not ranting or panicking, shouting, "Clear it away." No, it was none of that. It was just that deep Yorkshire voice, David Seaman.
And you said Rob Green. You didn't pick Rob Green. Obviously, he came very, very close. Or the World Cup. What was it like playing in the World Cup with obviously in centre back as well with somebody like Rob Green? I know we'll get onto it probably a little bit more later on.
But
was it a different type of keeper? Was it a different type of keeper you had to have behind you in a World Cup game, or what was it like?
Not really, and he was very similar to David Seaman in a lot of ways. Rob Green, I have to say, just with his personality, he was quite calm and really steady to play in front of. But that's mainly the criteria, I feel, when you're in big games and in big situations. The personality of the player you're with, especially as a goalkeeper, knowing they're going to be calm and make good choices. I think anything that panics you in any way you always got one eye on, not sure what's happening. You've got enough to focus on in front of you. So to know that behind you is taken care of and calm, you ain't got to think about it.
Fantastic. So we'll move on to right back. Who have you picked as your perfect right back in your best 11 players?
This was quite a tough one in that, again, they were both club and country. I played with one of the players in the same club, but I only played with the other player in international matches for England, and it was between Gary Neville and Lee Dixon. So relatively similar. You'd have to say that Gary Neville probably as an attacking fullback had a bit more in terms of crossing the ball and getting forwards. Obviously had a great partnership with David Beckham, which they took to England and for Manchester United in terms of partnering up and knowing each other's game, which I think made him probably a better player and got the best out of him. But I think I'm going to go with Lee Dixon, just for out and out reliable defending, knowing the position, studying the position, just brilliant in terms of positioning and tactically defensively. And I think Marv will probably agree. You love fullbacks to get on the ball, but there's nothing better than having a fullback that defensively, defends the back post, gets good distances, has good distances from you as a centre back, good communicator, and Lee Dixon was all of those things.
So he just edges out Neville for that reason, Matt? Yeah?
Yeah, exactly that. Just that. Like you said, Neville probably had a bit more to his game. And going forwards, I thought Gary Neville was brilliant. His timing of when he would go forwards and overlap, and then his delivery was first class. And he wasn't a bad defender either, by the way. No. But Dixon just edges it for me because he just knew the ins and outs. He was very, very cautious as well. Probably needed more. As when Arsene Wenger came to Arsenal, he got the best out of him with the ball for sure, because he was more out and out just a defender under previous managers at Arsenal. So I think that side of his game did get better under Wenger. But I'm just picking him.
Okay. And Gary Neville, I mean, obviously he comes across outspoken and to the point, which in the media, which I love, by the way. Was he like that in the dressing room with England?
Yeah.
Speaking up. Yeah.
Definitely. That was him. he would speak how he felt, which at times probably went down pretty well. At times, that's the nature of being that type of person, isn't it? It's really powerful at times, but it can also, upset a few or ruffle a few feathers in the meantime. But he definitely, as he comes across what you've just explained there, he would definitely be very vocal in and around the dressing room and not shy to give his opinion. So yeah, that again, probably a strength of his. You say in a football dressing room, you need people like that, don't you? You need characters that are willing to do that. Yeah,
definitely. And I think it's interesting as well that Neville played alongside a number of different centre backs, whereas I suppose Dixon played a pretty consistent back four when he came to Arsenal. Obviously, I know before then, but when he was at Arsenal, he had that back four, whereas I suppose Neville had Ferdinand come in, he had Stam, Vidic, so he played alongside and obviously started his career off with Bruce and Pallister. So no, definitely. Lee Dixon was very much in that was a back four regime, wasn't it? And it was the Arsenal back four for 10 years, and everyone knew each other's movements and the partnerships that were developed were just brilliant. So it's a tough call between those two. There's literally nothing between them. But I might have just edged for Dicko as well, because I knew him better. I played more games with him, and obviously I trained with him for 3-4 years at Arsenal every day, and I got to see him more close up. But sometimes that can sway the amount of minutes played with them. You get to know the player better. Fantastic. So left back, moving across the other side.
Easy one for me. Probably, in my opinion, the best left back that's played in the Premier League is Ashley Cole.
Easy as, yes. Yeah.
Straightforward.
Can't argue that.
No, definitely. Even though the only question I will raise with you is, I'd say it can be a bit suspect from my perspective in defence, and yet you've gone for Dixon as a hardcore defender. Defending wasn't Cole's strength. He was a very good defender, but you know what I mean? He wasn't his strength. He was much more, particularly under Mourinho, more so than probably under Wenger. It was more of an attacking.
Yeah, I would say he was brilliant 1v1s, Ashley Cole. When you gave him a challenge on a 1v1, he was different class, because his ability to change direction and shift his feet, he was one of the sharpest over 5 yards. So I thought when he knew he was playing up against a Ronaldo or any player that had a big reputation for dribbling and getting at you, he rose to the challenge every time. And that for me was superb. I think you're right in terms of position. Like what Dixon was good at was always checking his distance between his centre back. He was always a yard in front of you and not a yard behind you, so you had the final shout of offside. His tactical position of where the fullback was when he was coming into the back post, and all those little elements of fullback defending. Lee Dixon was brilliant. Cole wasn't. You're right. Cole wasn't all about that. He was all about the individual 1v1s, getting the better of the wide player he was playing against, and getting forwards. Yeah, and he did both those things to a world-class level.
And if he needed it, he's got the pace to burn to get himself out of trouble.
Exactly. 5 yards, he was sharp. His change of direction was nearly as quick as Marv's.
To be honest, I was just about to say, when I was playing fullback in my early days, that was my best form of defence, was attack. I would just get forward. Yeah. And to be fair, I took that into... Go on.
That's how you played. I always remember you marauding forwards with the ball.
That's exactly
unbelievable attacking threat.
And I even did it from centre back. So I just thought, you know what?
Yeah.
I used to have some banter sometimes, Matt, with some players, and they used to say, "Are you meant to be the striker? Aren't I meant to be marking you?" And I was just getting forward, and he's going, getting all angry, and steam's coming out their heads. I used to thought, hey, you're the attacker, aren't you? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. But I'm sure you played a lot more left back or full back younger, no? So it was like I did too. You almost transition, or it's good. It's almost a good schooling for a centre back to go and spend time out there. Makes you a better defender overall, doesn't it? Most young centre backs end up playing right full back to begin with, and then drifting inside.
Yeah,
later on.
as you say, you're more exposed then. It makes you a better defender. And that's why you're right about Ashley Cole. His one-on-one defending whenever I didn't get beat. Didn't get beat.
No.
That's fantastic. What was he like on the training ground? We said he was quick. Who'd win on the Arsenal training grounds over those 5-yard sprints?
Yeah, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I was probably second, I would say.
That's what I'm saying.
I couldn't beat Henry. Henry was just out there on his own in terms of speed. In that era group of players, he was a joke. He could have been a 100-meter sprinter if he'd have.
What was Anelka like? Anelka was quick as well, wasn't he?
Anelka, probably then, him and Henry would have been by themselves.
Oh, quickly, you've jumped down to third now. Look, see?
Well, no, I wasn't. I remember doing a speed test, and Anelka wasn't at the club, to be fair. If he was, he would have beat me, no doubt. But I really surprised myself because I came second over 40 metres. I couldn't come second over 5 metres. You had players like over Mars, Ashley Cole. Over 5 metres, that little 5-metre burst were just, lightning. But over 40 metres, when I could get into my rhythm and get some stride pattern going, I was okay.
So you surprised yourself, you said. You were surprised.
I did. I completely. And I think I surprised everyone else. Everyone kind of looked at the results that went up on the wall and went, what? Upson? what's he doing in there? What is it? But like you say, over that slightly longer distance.
So obviously centre backs. I've always wondered this. I'm asking this to both of you for non-players who might be listening. Is it overspoken about the left side and the right hand side of a centre back pairing? Does it matter that much?
I think yes. In an ideal world, you've obviously had a lot of centre back pairings that have been, more often than not, both right-footed, that have been very successful. So it's not a deal breaker, but I think in possession, it does give you a better balance. And I think it gives a coach or a manager better balance in terms of playing out from the back, patterns of passing from the back into the front or into midfield. It's just a balance. And I think you find also, I mean, I'm saying this because we're left-footed, but there's something about the left-footed players that they almost have a different way of passing the ball. It's very strange. I think the brain works differently from left foot to right, and they're either more creative or they've just got a different type of delivery, and it just adds a brilliant balance to the team for me.
It looks better, doesn't it? I mean, for whatever reason, it looks better when you see a left-footed pass or you see a left-footed person pass the ball. Don't know why, but like you just explained, it just looks better. And I agree with what you've just said there, especially now in today's game where it's about possession of the ball. It adds more balance to the team. I mean, back, especially when I was playing and maybe even before then, the job was just to defend. So, I mean, it didn't make much difference if you're right or left-footed, but in today's games especially, I think it means so much to have a balance of a left-footed centre-half.
Yeah, I used to enjoy hitting like a diagonal as well. So you kind of think if you're on the wrong side, it's hard to have that touch inside to hit diagonal because you're going to get pressurised too much from a centre forward, aren't you? So just to let the ball run across you and then hit a diagonal, I used to use that ball all the time. And if I was playing on the other side, it wouldn't have been as good. My right foot wasn't as accurate or as nowhere near as good as my left. So, it would take away that little weapon that you have of a good diagonal path.
And obviously, like, speaking about yourself, getting that move, I mean, not being disrespectful, it obviously wasn't just those 2 minutes when you played at Rotherham that Arsenal must have been looking at you. I mean, I said to Andrew beforehand, you were like, as a kid coming up, you knew you was going to be special and because that's one of the things I remember about your big diagonal with your left foot, comfortable on the ball, quick as well, all right, and competitive in the air. So that was a big thing. Going to a club of Arsenal's stature at the age of 18 for £2 million meant big news for obviously the Arsenal people and also for some of the Luton fans who didn't really get to know you that well. Yeah,
it came out of nowhere, but it was also I think the FA Youth Cup, Marv, to be honest, played a big factor for me. And, we so look forward to that tournament as a YTS. It was like the highlight of your year, getting a drawn away at Anfield, playing at the ground and all that, the opportunity to play in a big stadium, even though it wasn't that full. But the FA Youth Cup played a big factor because we always used to be quite successful, Luton. You know, it has got a great reputation of developing players, isn't it? In terms of over the years.
Maybe after I was like in there, I mean, we didn't do that well in the Youth Cup. We won the Southern Junior Floodlit Cup. We won that at the time. But after about, I think from your year on, you're right. You did. How far did you go? I mean, you went quite far.
We lost in the semi-finals to Leeds, but Leeds had Harry Kewell, McFarlane, Paul Robinson, Jonathan Woodgate. It was Alan Smith. It was some team that had about 6 players that went on to play regularly.
That was the Champions League team of 1900, wasn't it? Yeah,
that's right. So it was and it was a tight. I think we drew the first leg and lost the second. It was a tight game, so we pushed them far. And for Luton to do that was a big achievement for us as a youth team with John Moore. So I think that played a big part in me. That was a big shop window for young players back then. I think a lot of focus was put on that from scouts and various people watching football.
Excellent. So we'll move on to centre backs. Thanks for it's really interesting that. Who have you gone for as centre backs? Either order.
First one was leader, captain, figure, legend. Really, in terms of a club and country.
Look at Marv's face.
Tony Adams. Sorry, Marv. Sorry.
Not me. No, it's not me.
Until you said Tony Adams, he was there going.
I was going to say, it was only 2 minutes. You had to have played with them for more than 2 minutes. When you played the game, I think I played in that game at Rotherham. I'm thinking, it can't be me. Is it me? Is it all that me? No.
Yeah. No, it's Tony Adams, I'm afraid. Tony Adams.
Yeah.
He had to just squeak in there, just ahead of you, Marv. Close. You ran him close. What can you say about him in terms of
man, player, everything?
Just a brilliant player, unbelievable character in the dressing room, just vocal, out there, shouty, making noise at times. At times he'd just make noise on the pitch. It wouldn't actually be information. It would just be persona and body language was just unbelievable. As a young player watching a centre-back, in terms of making yourself bigger in your stature just by how you walk and what your mannerisms are and how you organise and gesture and point to people, all those things, it just spelt leadership really. And that for me was what he could play a little bit as well. He had great ability to play short passes and 1-2s, and similar to Marv, he'd like to marauding run forwards as well. Would just sometimes just burst out with the ball, and you'd think, where's he going? And he'd just go on a run, play a 1-2 with a midfielder, then he's running at the back 4 and have a shot or slide someone through. It was, he was brilliant. And
he scored the winning goal, didn't he, in the Premier League title? Was that 98? He did that marauding run against Everton, wasn't it?
Yes, Everton. Everton, wasn't it? It was against Everton, was it?
That's right. That was the game. I remember it well. I was on the bench watching that one.
And it was Bold who put the ball through, wasn't it? That was centre half.
That's right.
Centre half to centre half.
That's what I mean. Tony would just pop it off and it'd be gone. That was it. And then it made that run. Boldy saw it and just clipped it over the top and he was in. But I remember playing a game, I think it was against Wimbledon at home, and we were winning comfortably 2-0 by half time. And I was playing with him at the back. And we came out 5 minutes into the second half. He just said, I'm not going to say anything. Now, you got to tell me where you want me to be. I was 18. And he was England captain at the time. And he said, you need to organise the back 4. You need to tell me where I want to be. I'm not going to say anything. Yeah. And we just did that for 40 minutes of the game.
Wow.
And things like that. It was just a great learning experience for me too. The flip side is that I couldn't play enough because the competition was too good. And at 18, I wasn't going to knock him or Martin, Keown or Boldy out of the team. It just wasn't going to happen. But in terms of learning and being around that type of character, it was a real education.
But Matty, that just speaks volumes about what a character and a player he was. For him to like do that to you, because he's obviously trying to like give you learning experiences. Like you played a similar position. You're 18. I'm not sure how old he was, but sometimes other pros can see you as like a threat, like a young whippersnapper coming in. I'm not going to help him, but I think that's a great story, which obviously it would be great for everyone to hear, whoever's listening to that story, especially if there's any young kids or young coaches, that Tony Adams did that as a learning experience for you in the game. I think that's fantastic.
No, it was great for me. And in fairness, I can put all of those three, Bold, Keown, Adams, all in that bracket of being absolutely superb to me as a young player, always helpful, always encouraging. And they all had their own little, someone like Martin, just love playing with Martin because he was just so tenacious.
Yeah.
And he would it balanced off quite well with me because I'd almost try and read it and drop off and get the ball and compete when I needed to. But you knew that if it was a feisty game or a big competition, you knew that he was taking care of it. He was in the thick of it all the time. That was just his nature, and great to play with.
Funny you should say that. Martin Keown was probably the only one person who I think gave Mick Harford a really tough game. I'm being serious because you know him better than I would. Like he gave me the impression, Martin Keown, of being, when I used to watch him sometimes, being a little bit crazy. Like just didn't care. Like he would literally just like dive in there and fight. So he was the only one time in the early days when I just got into the team, I thought, wow, he mixed like. Do you know what I mean? He's got like
definitely. He's so measured off the pitch, Martin. So measured, the way he speaks, how he is. He used to put a pair of boots on, and you just go, "What? Who is this guy?"
White line fever. White line fever.
Completely. Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned Mick Harford because he used to tell me, because I used to share a room with him at Arsenal, Martin. He was my roommate, and he always used to tell me a story about what he once caught Mick Harford with an elbow or something, and I can't remember the story, but he tells his great story about playing against Mick. And how, can you imagine them two together? It just you might as well just put a ring around them and just let them fight it out for 90 minutes. Don't you? Just don't get involved, Marv. Stay out the way.
No, exactly.
Well, some of our younger listeners as well would have seen it with Van Nistelrooy, of course, when he was fully. I remember when he missed that penalty at Old Trafford, and Van Nistelrooy was Martin Keown was right in Van Nistelrooy's face shoving him, chest pumping, that almost kind of persona of the scare tactics. It's
an iconic clip, that, isn't it? It's always played. For the Premier League, used that as a, if they're ever doing any little montage of the Premier League, that Martin's face in that just shows you where he used to go. He used to get into a zone.
That's it.
And that was it. And it was such a great asset to him as a player. It made him who he was.
Yeah, it's interesting. And it's interesting, going back to the original person you picked about Tony Adams, that Tony went into management. He's still in and around management at the moment, whereas obviously Martin and yourself have gone, at the moment anyway for yourself, have gone into the media. So it's quite interesting, the different ways that people can go despite being leaders at your clubs in all walks of kind of in all areas. Obviously yourself being leader at Stoke and at West Ham and places like that, and obviously growing leadership at Birmingham. It's quite interesting how different people go in different ways.
Yeah, I think it's so different. It's so different, and a lot of players that I worked with that have gone into coaching or management, when I played with them, I never pictured them doing that. And like saying, there's some players that I thought they're definitely going to be a manager, and then they don't. I think it's such a personal, your life, your family life, the sacrifice you have to make after football if you really want to do all these things, and then come into, it's not just a black and white of can I do it, am I going to be good? There's lots of other things in life that sometimes, people make different choices, and you're right. I don't think you can ever really tell.
Awesome. Well, of course, Marv's coaching at the moment over in the States, so Marv's gotten into the coaching side of things.
And I love it, man. I love it.
Yeah, enjoying it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's frustrating sometimes where you think it's like a bit like golf. I'm not really a big golfer. You think you've got it sussed, and I coach girls, and the girls go out and perform unbelievably, and like they've got the tactics and how you want them to play. They're switching the ball, they're playing at the back, and then you go and play another week, and it's like they get beat 3-0, and it's like it's not the same team, and so you're scratching your head sometimes. But that's the beauty of the game, I suppose.
But you can sympathise with managers. You know, you think back to when you were playing. We're all human beings, aren't we? We ain't going to be the same week in, week out. It's just, you know, and you kind of get better at that as well, I did anyway. As time goes on, the bad games that were a 4 out of 10, were then like a 5 or a 6 out of 10. You know, and you just limit the damage of not having a good day at the office. You just get the basics right. You know, accept that you're not going to be able to pass it well, or this is not going to come off. But you just make sure you do the basics, and that used to help me.
Definitely. So centre back, who's your other one next to Tony?
Slightly later, more my era of player. Both the same age as me. Both I played with for England, and it was a tough choice between Rio Ferdinand and John Terry. Really tough. Yeah. And both very different attributes. But I think I have arrived at a decision that's going to be Rio Ferdinand.
I thought that, isn't he left-footed?
No, he's not, is he?
Rio left-footed? Rio's right-footed.
Yeah, he's right-footed, yeah.
Sorry. I don't know where I got that from.
Rio's right-footed.
So's Terry, isn't he? Right-footed as well, isn't he?
Terry's right-footed, but would play on the left, and actually had a decent left foot, to be fair, because he always played on the left side. But he's predominantly, his favourite foot is his right foot.
So why Rio over John? Pace? Coming through adversity? Because, of course, a lot of people don't remember that Rio did a 8-9 month drug ban for, not drug ban, sorry. He didn't get busted for drugs. He just missed the urine sample, didn't he? I think that's what it was. He just missed the test. Missed the test and ended up with a 9-month ban. Yeah. Very strange period. I remember meeting up with the England squad on the day after that happened, and he got left out of the squad. And I remember us having a meeting about it, and it was obviously a big thing at the time. And you're right, he had to go through a ban for that. But as a player, he was just very measured. And like I say, he had real physical attributes. He could cover the ground. He was a bit of a Rolls Royce the way he played, which is very different to Terry, who was all out, you know, head in the way, very dominant physically. Was probably a much more physical player than what Ferdinand was with the way he used to play.
It was more of an Adams, wasn't he? Like a young Adams, Terry, that sort of mould, wasn't he? But he was comfortable on the ball. He was comfortable on the ball, Terry.
He was comfortable on the ball, but would physically want to get in the thick of it. Would kick people up in the air a lot and be very dominant in the air. Whereas Rio didn't really do that particularly. He would just manage the game with almost like effortlessly.
Right.
When he was called upon, obviously as a centre back, you have to get your hands dirty as well.
Yep.
But the majority of the time, he was reading the game, dropping into great spaces, stepping in front, and with the ball was just super composed and could had a temperament for big occasions. You can see that in him now. Just nothing fazed him. Played in massive games and would be relaxed and cope with the game. So, yeah, I think he slips in there as my second centre back.
Oh, definitely. Lot on pace, very similar to yourself as well. Like you say, in terms of pace and speed.
Very quick.
Yeah, he was quick.
Yeah, good lad. Excellent. Well, what we'll do is we'll pause it there for a second, and we will be back after this ad break from our sponsor.
Thank you for listening to My Best 11 Pod. We are currently accepting applications for advertisement and sponsorships. You can reach us at mybest11pod or mybest11pod@gmail.com. Thank you.
So we are back for the second part of My Best 11 podcast with Matthew Upson. So far in goal, we've got David Seaman. At right back, Lee Dixon. Left back, Ashley Cole. And in central defence, we have Tony Adams and Rio Ferdinand. So we're going to jump straight in and Matthew's gone for a 4-4-2. So we'll start off on either the right or the left, whichever one you prefer. We'll go from there.
Right midfield. One name kind of jumps out at you in terms of who I played with for England. It was David Beckham. So
yeah,
I toyed with Robert Perez for a long time in terms of whether I should pick him, because
what a player.
He was brilliant, Marv, wasn't he? Perez, just and the longevity of his career. I think when did he retire? I used to tune in and watch like La Liga games or something. He was like running the show at 39 or something, or in the middle of midfield. Unbelievable.
Can you imagine what he would be like in training, to train with him every day? It'd be like just hilarious. He reminded me of, again, not knowing him, you could maybe like collaborate this, like one of these players who would be like jinking and doing skill and just having a bit of a fun, like laughing, but like working hard, but enjoying the game, the game.
Exactly that. You're absolutely spot on. And when he came to Arsenal, we used to do a lot of possession squares, big and small, and you never saw him give the ball away. He was a joke. It was just simple 1 and 2 touch, movement, where's the space, pressure. He could have it anywhere, have it in a phone box and come out the other. You know what I mean? It's very difficult not to pick him. But on the flip side of that, with David Beckham, just dead ball, his delivery. You know, you could run a show reel of crosses that he's put in across his career, and it just blow you away.
Yeah,
the accuracy of what that man could deliver the ball.
One side of the pitch, the other on a sixpence, as the old-fashioned saying was.
Unbelievable. I remember training with England and we were playing a game at the end, and I can't remember who was in it might have been Heskey or someone I was marking, and I thought I'm in good position here. I was scanning, checking. I had Emile there, and this deep cross, and he crossed it so deep, didn't he? Early,
yeah.
He just like bent it over the top and in behind. And I was like a yard off my man. It was nothing. I was in. Right. You'd have to analyse it and go, I was actually in a decent position.
Yeah.
But the ball was just inch perfect.
I know, obviously, you play with him towards not the back end of his career, but definitely in the middle and the end of his career. What was he like as a personality? Because he always comes across as quite a shy guy. Was he quite out there, or was he? Obviously, that time as well, he was England captain, so you'd expect or maybe hope he was a bit more vocal. Or was he one of these shy ones?
Yeah, he wasn't particularly vocal especially early on when I kind of played for England in 2 stints. One was from 03 to 05 under Sven, and then I had like a 2.5 year break from not getting selected. And then when Fabio Capello took over in 08, I then had almost a resurgence and got back in the squad and in the team. But the first time around, there was kind of a big difference in him from the 2 stints that I trained and played with him. And he was a lot quieter, that not as confident in terms of being vocal and what have you with England first time. But the second time around, the change in him was noticeable. He was much more vocal and louder and had his personality out in the dressing room a lot more. And you can just see that over the years and the experience that he'd had at the clubs he'd just become more and more vocal in that way. But yeah.
Hey, just going back to you and your England career, which is fantastic to obviously to play for your country. Can you just like explain when did you find out, and what was it like when you got your first cap, or you knew you were in the squad for the first time ever?
I remember it because I had just left Arsenal and gone to Birmingham City. I couldn't get enough game time at Arsenal to be able to get myself anywhere near the squad, and we had a great the centre backs around at the time. Just before that and during, the position was just had such quality in depth from Adams, Keown, Sol Campbell, Gareth Southgate was in there, Rio, John Terry. So even Gareth Barry at the time was kind of a left-sided centre-back who was direct competition for me. So there was a stiff competition. But I remember getting the call. I just played on the Saturday for Birmingham. I think we'd won. I'd gone back to the hotel with some friends. I think my mum and dad as well. We were having some food, and I got the call, and it was amazing. It was around my family and friends at the time, which was great.
Right.
Made it all that more special. And I remember, I think we were going to go out that evening, but I had to knock it on the head, get myself to bed, Mo, because I was a good pro when I didn't want to turn up for my first day at England after a late night. And I remember meeting up with the squad on the Sunday, very nervous, very kind of a little bit, nerve-wracking, but soon kind of settled in. But I feel my first stint with England, I didn't really believe, I never really fully believed I should be there. Right. I think that was my biggest problem the first 2 years, and why I probably fell away a little bit and had to go away and almost develop myself to believe that I should be playing for England. And in my second stint, I had a completely different mindset, and it was far more successful.
Didn't he put you in his first squad? Was it Fabio? Your second, wasn't he?
He did,
That was his first ever squad, wasn't it? I think.
Yes, he'd been to watch me a lot, and I remember. So
that was massive confidence for you.
Yeah, you know what it's like. You're in the dressing room, and word gets down. So and so's come here today to watch you, or not necessarily me, but so and so's at the game.
Yeah.
So I knew he'd been to Upton Park a lot. So he was either watching Rob Green, me, probably Scott Parker was another player who'd have been watching a lot, Carlton Cole, to be selected. But at that time in my career, I really believed and felt I should be at that level, and I didn't have that same confidence when I was younger and when I first got in, and I was almost just making up the numbers. And you're never going to achieve anything with that mentality. It's impossible.
No,
it's absolutely impossible.
Correct.
So, it was a great learning period for me. But second time around was far more enjoyable.
Oh, and like I said, a big boost being in his first ever squad. I mean, he's now the manager, and this is his first squad he's picking. That's a big, massive boost for you to be in that squad.
Definitely. I think it was Terry, Ferdinand, me. I can't remember who else would have been centre back at the time. We had Gary Cahill was coming through. Michael Dawson as well at Tottenham. So it was a big boost for me personally.
And Fabio,
just quickly, you
like Fabio Capello as well. Sorry, Marv.
Sorry, I was just going to say, and just quickly, you like playing against Germany. Obviously, your two goals.
I did. Who doesn't like scoring against Germany? It's like, I don't know what it was. The only 2 goals I scored for England, both against Germany. But first game we won in Berlin. Second one was very disappointing in the World Cup. But I scored a couple. Probably could have scored 1 or 2 more. I remember a couple of other opportunities, because certain matches it can be a goal fest, can't it, with England? You're playing certain teams at Wembley in the qualifying stages or whatever. It's 4, 5, 6-0, and you've almost got to. Sometimes the concentration in them games is even harder because you're so out of. You're not on the ball a lot, and you're dominating the game quite heavily. But scoring for England, just brilliant feeling. What an amazing feeling.
And in the World Cup.
And then going to World Cup. I was going to say, and going to World Cup as well.
Scoring in the World Cup. Joint top goal scorer that for England in 2010.
I know, that just shows you how bad it was, wasn't it? What a disaster. It was a disaster, wasn't it? Just that was a bizarre experience, really strange experience, and not what I'd pictured. Let's put it that way. Not what the group had pictured either, I don't think, because we were so successful in the 2 years building up to that competition, but it just took a downward turn from quite early on. It was a real shame.
Yeah, I was going to say, Fabio. What was it like playing under Fabio Capello?
He came in, it was a breath of fresh air, changed everything, mentality towards training, train twice a day. We'd have the train in the morning, then have an 11-a-side game with your shin pads on at 5 p.m. back at the training ground for 45 minutes. Pushed you to the brink of where you thought, this is getting a bit silly now. And if you didn't, there was always a culture that under previous regimes at times that certain players would always play. So you might meet up on the Sunday evening, but some might not train till the Wednesday because, they're carrying a little knock or needed a rest or whatever. And, other people would be training flat out, and then you wouldn't get picked at the end of it. And I think he came in and really changed that and went, no, if you can't train, you don't play. It's that simple.
Right.
And the attitude towards training from everyone changed. And I thought it had a really positive impact all around. And yeah, that was the biggest transformation that I thought he brought to England, was just that mentality of having to commit to training and to work hard. It was really refreshing.
Yeah, it would be. So moving on, left midfield. You picked David Beckham and left out Robert Perez.
Yeah, this guy I mentioned earlier, he could stop on a sixpence, he was lightning quick, but he also had the best brakes. He had ceramic brakes as well, and could outbrake anyone. And that was his tact. It was spurts of speed, then he looked like he was going to stop, and then he would go again, and you were gone. That was it. And it's Mark Overmars. Yeah. He's probably I didn't play with that many out and out real great. I'm trying to wrap my brain of left-sided, left-footed players. He was a fantastic player, but there wasn't that many to challenge how good he was.
And he wasn't at Arsenal for very long, was he? He was only a couple of years, a year and a half, couple of years before he went to Barcelona with Petit.
Correct, couple of seasons, and then him and Petit left at the same time to Barcelona, and we missed them. To be fair, missed them because they were fabulous players, and he was a real character. Mark Overmars, quite a cheeky, funny character, and obviously gone on to great things as a director of football, or part of the Ajax setup, isn't he?
Him and Dennis Bergkamp seem to have it all wrapped up over in Ajax at the moment. They're doing quite well.
That's right.
Obviously playing with Mark Overmars on the left-hand side, you like pinging that ball crossways. Was he always there as an out for yourself?
He was always there, but he would always he always had little signals. So he'd always it was actually very simple but effective, and it was just that classic. If I'm going to come short, if my first movement's to come short, I'm going long, and if I'm going to go away, I'm coming short. He just had opposite movement all the time, and he would say that to you before. If you see me coming short, just go over the top. And if you just remembered that, you were fine.
And funny you should say that. This reminded me of similar for me. We was talking about that little diag from the centre of the field. Tony Forkby to do that, and it wasn't even something we spoke about. It was something that we just developed. Like, I knew if he come short, he was going to go long, and if he went long, he was going to come short. And I mean, I wasn't too bad at passing. I was half decent. So when he used to come short to go long, I used to be able to drop the ball like quite close to put him in. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Don't sell yourself short, Marv. You had a decent left foot, mate. You could clip that one in there, couldn't you? No problem.
I could. To be fair,
no problem. But yeah, it's effective. It's simple, but it's effective, and it's quite hard to play against. As a fullback, you go short. You think, well, do I go? And obviously, if the fullback didn't go at all, then he might check his shoulder and stay short, and then you just give it in. It was a tough player to play against, and I think he gave a lot of people a torrid time. I remember him winning. He basically won the game for us at Old Trafford against Gary Neville one year. And I think probably if you sat down and asked him, I think I've heard Neville say, out of all the players he's played against in the Premier League, he probably disliked playing against Mark Overmars the most.
Right. So
gave
quick,
him a really tough time.
You look at Overmars' history. He was part of that 95-96 Ajax. That ridiculous team that played in that with Ajax there, with all the way from Bergkamp to Kluivert. You had David Seedorf. I mean, the names of the team, just Van der Sar, they roll off the tongue in that particular team in that 95 era. So he was part of a fantastic team, and it's great he's doing well there.
Yeah, well, when you walk down, if you go to the Amsterdam Arena and you walk down the corridor to the dressing rooms, they've got pictures of all the players. And even if you go in the main entrance, and if you're heading up to your seat or the lounges, the photos, the pictures they've got of all the academy successes they've had, it blows your mind. It blows your mind, the players that have come through that club. It's just it is an academy of football, isn't it? And the talent and what they breed there is just, super players, aren't they? Still doing it now.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on wingers? Are you obviously they're not in fashion at the moment? Is it something you think could be under or overutilized, or they're not. I mean, it's kind of a weird one at the moment because they're kind of wide strikers, aren't they? Really?
Yeah, they're very fashionable to play on the opposite side, isn't it? And to come favoured foot inside, which I have to say I do really like. I like it. I think it's if you've got fullbacks and that's the key for me. I think it works really well if you've got a fullback that's good quality going forwards. I think it's great to have those outside players that can come onto their favourite foot. I think, you look at how Liverpool do it. You look how Manchester City have done it of late. Two of probably the most prolific attacking teams in the Premier League at the moment. You have to say it's so hard to play against, isn't it? Really hard to play against.
Yeah,
definitely. So central midfield. Let's move on. Central midfield.
My number one, my easiest pick is Patrick Vieira.
Yep. Guaranteed. Shoe in, wouldn't he?
Shoe in. Absolute shoe in. No doubt. It's the first one on the list. And just, he had a telescopic leg that could just get balls, steal balls, or you thought you had it and this leg would come out of nowhere and just prod it away from you. And then he had the stride pattern and like the physicality just to brush you to one side, like you weren't there, like you're a little boy. And then he was just gone. And physically, he was just a joke.
How tall was he, Max? I mean, I've not seen him, but you look at him and you think he looks like he's 6'1", 2 could be even. I don't know.
No. He's about 6'4", Marv. 6'3", 6'4". Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he was about 6'4", I think, Patrick. Unbelievable. And he had that party trick of every game. The ball would be bouncing. Someone would come in and he'd flick it over their head and get it the other side. He did it every game. You knew it was coming. You could sit there with a book, wait and think, how many times are you going to do that today? And just wait, and all of a sudden, there you go. Every game he did it. Just take the mick, really. Just take the mick.
Wow.
Yeah.
The archetypal box-to-box player. I mean, when he came to Arsenal, you were there as a youngster. Obviously,
yeah, I think he signed just before me.
Oh, did he sign just before you? Sorry.
I think he was there just before me, similar time.
What was your thoughts when he came in? Because he wasn't a well-known name. They'd signed him from AC Milan reserves, I think it was. So
that's right.
They didn't really know much about him. What did you see when he came in compared to, the player that we all know became?
Well, he hit the ground running, came in, got given the opportunity, didn't look back. I don't ever remember there being a backwards or sideways step that he ever took in terms of progressing as a player. Unbelievable. The thing he found hardest and the biggest threat to him and his success, or him staying at Arsenal and becoming the legend that he is, was his disciplinary record. I think that was his biggest battle. Nothing to do with playing or ability to play or what, just ridiculous. But he went for a real sticky period of not being able to control his emotions and himself on the pitch, and he would almost go to war with referees, and the yellow cards and send-ins off that he had. And there's one season where I think he accumulated 2 or 3 send-ins off in a close period of time and was suspended for, I don't know, X amount of games, and it started to become a real frustration of his. But Marv, the other side about it is, you want a midfield player tackle. I mean, his tackling was phenomenal. He would smash people.
I mean, everyone talks about him and Keown, didn't they? That was literally war between those two. And I've heard them talk. I mean, on different media. It wasn't for show. That was like they disliked each other, or it was just the way how it was. Man United, Arsenal. It wasn't a case of like, I'm doing this for show. They both meant it.
Definitely.
Both meant it.
Definitely, 100%. It was real. It wasn't any kind of, all that stuff was completely real. And I think those experiences, as he got over that, and I'd say that's probably a couple of years into me being there. So I would have been 20, 21. So he was probably by the time he was 24, 25, he'd almost got to grips with it and knew how to handle it better and was more experienced. And that's when you really saw, how he was. But what a player. He could do it. He score goals.
Yeah.
Defending set pieces. Like having another centre-back in the pitch when you're defending set pieces. 6'4" and can head it as your centre midfield player. Yeah. But can handle the ball, would come and have it.
Yeah.
I mean, playing in that back four, you very rarely needed to pass it further than 10, 15 yards. It was just, you just need to tickle it into midfield and they'd do the rest, It could be easy at times playing in that team. When you had the ball, it was brilliant.
Fantastic player. And who's next to Patrick?
Tough one. Probably the longest time I've toyed with a position on the pitch because I didn't quite know who to fill in next to him. It was really hard. Paul Scholes was a player that, you hear most people talk about Paul Scholes, and I played with him in that early spell with England, but probably not enough to really, for me to be able to pick him. And I know that's weird because a lot of people say he's the best player they've played with, and to watch and to see, and I just remember him in training doing volley practice, and another player could volley. Remember John Artson's volleying, Marv? Unbelievable volley of the ball, wasn't it?
He was.
What a volley of the ball he was. But Paul Scholes probably took it to the next level. You could just clip balls onto the volley and he was just volleying it, hitting the target, top corner, bottom corner, every time. Every time he was just a machine. And a great player. But the player that sticks out most to me that I have to pick is probably Steven Gerrard.
Okay.
I'll give that. I mean,
he's my pick.
Yeah. Again,
fantastic player. Yeah, fantastic player. Providing you a bit more attacking alongside. I know maybe that's a bit unfair on Patrick in terms of attacking prowess, but definitely somebody who likes to bomb on as well.
I think he was a bigger threat in terms of ball striking than Patrick. Patrick was a burst forward and play a 1-2 and then slot the ball home, whereas Gerrard's ball striking from long range, unbelievable. The accuracy and power that he'd hit the target, his shooting. Again, you could go through a show reel of goals that he scored from outside the box in terms of arriving. Unbelievable. And again, tenacious, put his foot in, honest in terms of genuine on the pitch and how he would play. And 1 and 2 touch. I used to watch him play. So he'd go through the whole game playing 1 and 2 touch. Never saw him have more than that. And it was so effective, you couldn't get near him. So he's my pick. And our captain as well with England in the World Cup. He was the captain, and he was a good captain too.
Excellent. I think as well that you just said there, the way how he passed the ball, but even his short passing. When I used to watch him, man, is his 10-yard short passing was like bang, and it was like every single time it was like on the ground, not bobbling. It was like a great pass. And I often say to the girls who I coach, like, the top players, right, do the simple things great. Every simple little pass is a perfect pass. It's a big difference.
It was crisp, wasn't it? And it was wrapped in as well. Yeah. And he was very much the type of person that if you weren't on his level, he'd let you know about it. So he wouldn't suffer somebody not having a good first touch, or he wouldn't suffer somebody not banging the ball into him like that. If you didn't pass it into him like that, you'd get it. Yeah, he'd let you have it, and that was great. He would demand more of people around him all the time because he had such high standards with those little simple points. Just which side am I passing it to him? Is it safe side? Have I put him in trouble? And if you didn't have a good first touch and he was passing it to you, you'd struggle because, like you say, he would smash it into you. It'd be accurate and firm. Yeah. But you had to be on the ball, ready to have it. So,
I've heard
brilliant player.
I've heard Crouch speaking on a podcast talking about it, saying he wouldn't even say a word. It will be just a look. He'll wrap it into you, and he said it'll just give you this look, as if to say, "Come on." Do you know what I mean?
Definitely that. You always felt like, oh, is that good enough? He demanded that from you. So when you saw him, you thought, I've got to be on my game here. I've got to put this into him. Or if he gives you the ball, you make sure your touch is right. He definitely had that facial expression, like you say, or look, or if he was to be vocal, he'd let you have it. And
Yeah.
you know, when you look back, you need those players. So important.
Yeah.
There's probably the more of that in the game, modern game, that you can have at the moment. I think the better.
Definitely.
Yeah. So when you're obviously playing with England, alongside people like Gerrard and etc., did they raise their game compared to what you saw on a regular Saturday afternoon, or playing for the international team, or is it a case of they're always at that ridiculous level? I mean, just what I mean by that, Matt.
Yeah, I think they're always at that ridiculous level, and I think that the more amazing stuff you'd see is probably in training, if I'm honest, because it was just more relaxed and things would happen in training. You just go, geez, that's unbelievable. If you create that on a pitch at Wembley or somewhere, then it's amazing. I think the biggest battle for players like him and that era of playing for England is just the personal battles that you used to have in terms of the pressure of playing for England and how that was. It wasn't quite right. And I think the squad now, and that's Gareth Southgate's biggest strength for me, is that he's addressed that. And I think you're seeing better performances from an England team. For me, I don't think that the talent pool was quite as good as maybe the time where I spent with England in terms of experience and level of player, but it's certainly getting better. But he's created a brilliant environment for those players that can only be a good thing.
Yeah. Was it like that in the dressing room? I mean, they've spoken about it quite openly, going up to the last World Cup, about it being Liverpool table, Chelsea table, Arsenal, Man United, etc. Was that what it was like? And then what it was like for you, obviously not playing at one of those clubs which had everybody? Was there a kind of rest of the world table? Or
yeah, the ones outside the top four would sit together. No, I don't know. I just think sometimes those environments, they need a bit of help. You know, it's not. It doesn't just happen by itself. So it needs a bit of help to get that. And I think that is the manager and the staff's role, to make that environment as happy, as competitive, as inclusive as possible. And I think that's the key thing, in people turning up, feeling comfortable, feeling included in what's going on. And like I say, I refer to my early times with England. I think that was something that was probably missing the most. We had brilliant players, and everyone was, you know, people treated each other with respect and very well. But it's just going that next level of creating a great team. There's a little bit more to it. The social element was always difficult with England because all eyes is a goldfish bowl, and just trying to create something without obviously, you know, being able to go out and socialise, which you can't do with international duty. It's just not possible. So you've got to create it another way. And I think Gareth Southgate's done that really, really well.
Do you think that the previous managers then, in terms of Ericsson, Capello, all those managers you mentioned, obviously you worked under, do you think they just didn't realise it needed to be addressed? Or do you think it was, and now Southgate's got hindsight, which is perfect? Or do you think it was kind of, no, they were quite happy with the situation the way it was?
Well, Southgate's got the advantage that he's experienced it as a player. So he knows what it might have felt like. And he's probably experienced it in the era where Euro 96, where it was very different. And look how successful England were. And then he's experienced it later on because I made my England debut with Gareth as a centre-back partner. So he was in and around that group of players at the time under Sven, who was very relaxed, but didn't put a lot of emphasis on getting everyone together and being that inclusive feel that Gareth Southgate's done. So, you know, I think Capello came in with his discipline, but didn't put a lot of focus on what we've just spoken about there at all. It was all quite regimented and disciplined, which had a reaction, but then it only took us so far. So, you know, it's a balance of all those things put together for me.
Oh, interesting. Very interesting. Thank you. So we're going up front, where you've got two players to pick from. You mentioned you're going to have one playing off, one on their own, or where are you looking here?
I'm looking, massive array of talent to choose from. Tough one, Marv, isn't it? You know, picking two out of the brilliant centre forwards or number 10s that I've played with over the years. One stands out. Actually, they both stand out. And I'm going to go first with somebody that just had real class. It's the best. If you had one word to describe him, would you just say class?
Okay.
Any guesses?
Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
What's that? I didn't hear that.
Bergkamp.
Dennis Bergkamp.
Bergkamp. Oh,
Dennis Bergkamp. Just class.
yeah.
Class. Both on and off the pitch.
Yeah, fantastic player. Great player. And like we said, part of that Ajax Academy, so he learned how to play things the right way.
Yeah, another one of their products. So yeah, just a brilliant player, brilliant guy.
Again, seeing some of the goals he scored, Manny, in the Premiership, I can only think, like, because when he's at that level and they're unbelievable, they're off the chart, the goals he's scoring.
Yeah.
Training must have been ridiculous, the stuff he's doing training. It has to have been ridiculous, the stuff he did.
Again, you're right. You'd see better stuff in training.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, whether that is possible, but you'd see stuff in training that you just go, how has he seen that? Like the vision, the awareness. He'd have eyes in the back of his head.
Yeah.
You know, and the one thing that people might not know about him was that he was brutal in terms of his manner in which he'd train. In terms of he would boot you, Marv. He was horrible at times.
I've heard that. He's got a nastiness about him, a nasty streak a little bit about him, which he'll leave one on you.
Terrible. And he had this dry, ruthless sense of humour as well that was just, like, at times cutting with his banter. But very measured, but just would, see something and just let someone have it. But I remember if you were getting the better of him on the rare occasion in training and you're having a good day, it would then be met with a little rakey set of studs down the back of the Achilles, or something. Yeah, he was very competitive. And again, disciplinary wise, if you probably look at his disciplinary record, he might have averaged 2 red cards a season. Yeah, definitely one or two for a centre forward of his class and the way he played. That's unheard of, isn't it? Like, for somebody to get sent off that many, to be or accumulation of bookings all the time. Yeah. But for me, that made him special. Yeah. Because he just had an edge to him that to be that good and then have that type of mentality.
Did you play against him many times?
Yeah.
What was he like? Obviously playing against, obviously for
Birmingham.
Arsenal.
For Birmingham, I played against him. Yeah, when we played Arsenal. Yeah.
What was that like? Was it obviously firstly playing against a play seen in the training ground, but was he even a bit more studsy, leave his foot in, or?
Not really. I mean, most of the games that we played Arsenal when I was at Birmingham at that time in the Premier League, we were getting beaten so badly that he had just had a cigar on. To be honest, we were already 3-0 down. You know what I mean? They were so good. We would just turn up at Highbury and just hope to hang on, really. But he was quick as well. That's the one thing. I remember seeing a clip of where I got the wrong side of him. We'd had a corner at Birmingham, and they counter-attacked, and I was sprinting back. And over that distance, I was decent, and he was half a yard in front. And this was the thing: he was quicker running with the ball than without it. Yeah. His technique for running with the ball was legendary. So if he had the ball at his feet and he had a yard on you, most players you think, well, I'm running without it, I'll catch them. Not him. He just had the stride pattern and the technique nailed, that he would just actually get away from people, even though he had the ball at his feet. And I remember trying to reel him back in, but just couldn't get there. And he scored, and I think we lost 2-3-0 at St Andrews. Wow. But he was a brilliant player.
Yeah, fantastic. Was he the type of person that when he put the ball through your nets, he'd shout nuts and things like that? What was he like? Was he that competitive?
Yeah, cheeky. Would take the piss when he could. Definitely would do that and joke around and try. He would try things, try the unexpected, which we've seen. Look at that goal against at Newcastle. Yeah, I mean, where do you even conjure that up from?
I know.
At what point in your brain do you think I'll try this?
Yeah. Poor old Nikos Davies ass. It's the only time he ever gets played on the highlight reel. I was talking about montages earlier.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, exactly. But also in that goal is we've got that lovely the thought process and then the execution. But then once he gets around the other side, the way that he gets his arm into him and his body, and he was so physical, Dennis. The contact he would make with players, he was very physical for the type of player he was. enjoy that side of the game as much as he would, the technical side of it.
The battle, the combat, and that's what makes him the best player, or one of the top players.
Makes him special.
Yeah. So you've gone for playmaker. So the gut reaction for most football fans would be we're gonna have a finisher, a poacher. Who have we gone for?
I'll let you two guess it. It ain't that hard. Who do you think? Guess it.
I'm going to say Shearer.
Never played with him.
Really? Come on.
So I'm going to guess Ian Wright.
No.
Oh, wow!
I know. I got it.
Oh, I don't know why I said that. Actually, yeah.
Henri.
Yes.
There you go. Marv's got it.
I don't know why I said Ian Wright after I said it. I was going to hang on. You said Thierry Henry earlier. Yeah. Yep.
Henri. Yeah. What do you say?
I know.
What do you say about Henri in terms of what do you reckon? Best player the Premier League's ever seen?
I mean, listen. I would say that because I didn't have the pleasure of playing with him or against him, but what I saw, you'd probably say, in my opinion, he was unplayable. He had to have a poor game for me to have a good game. If that makes sense. Because he had pace, he could head, he could. That's how I work it out. He had to have a poor game for me to have a good game.
Yeah. No, I think that most people feel the same. Well, you're not out there alone, mate. You're not on your own. Yeah. But he would just. I don't know. It's just hard to. He could just do things that were phenomenal physically. There's not been many better specimens in terms of strength, ability to jump.
Yeah.
We used to have a ceiling in the gym at Arsenal where the weights gym was, and we used to have competition. Like there was this big barn, who could touch it? We were trying for loads of lads were trying to running up, jumping it. He walked in with his flip flops on, Marv, just to take the mick even more. And went, "What are you trying to do? We're trying to hit that bar, Thierry." Okay, no problem. Flip flops on, boing, straight up, touch. Like he just had explosiveness beyond. Like I said, he could have probably been a 100-meter sprinter.
Wow.
Or whatever he wanted to be physically. He was just so impressive with what he could do. And to add the thinking, the intelligence, the technical element that he had, just made him at times. He was unstoppable, wasn't he? And unplayable.
Yeah.
Lead. I think 1 or 2 seasons in a row, he was lead goal scorer and lead assists in the Premier League. It's not often you see those two come together as number one in both. That's the measure of how good he was.
Yeah, and when he came in, he started off as a left winger. Was that? He lacked a bit of confidence because he didn't have a very successful time at Juve. And so, what was he like when he came into the club? Was it something that took a while to get his confidence back up, or did he always know it was there? It was just a case of a bit of TLC and it will come back. Yeah,
no, I think Arsene Wenger nurtured it and realised what he was good at, and realised that he was bringing a player in that had a bad time. And I remember him talking about, I think he enjoyed being at the club, and it was obviously a brilliant club at Juve, but how it was just didn't suit him where they were playing him. Maybe the Italian football side of it wasn't quite his game. And then he came into a club where a manager was very free on expressing yourself and allowing people to roam and express themselves, especially in an attacking sense. Wenger was all about attack. So he came to the perfect place because he had reliable players around him that were very regimented. He had a solid back four, and he was able to go and do his thing. And then to move him central just really added that extra dimension to what he was capable of.
Fantastic. And a left footer.
Yes. Well, yeah, he was both.
Both. Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Didn't matter what foot he was on. It was both were as good as each other.
Fantastic. So we've got a fantastic team in there. Who's going to lead this bunch of merry men? This fantastic bunch of players you picked.
Played under a lot of really good managers. One of my favourites, not that I played a lot, but Marvel, I've got so much respect for David Pleat. Like, as a young player, I don't think I've seen a better manager bring through young players than him. For that side of it, that David Pleat was just, I mean, Marv's got a much better experience of him than what I have. But from at 15 to get invited to come and train with the first team on a summer holiday from school or on an Easter holiday to play against players at Kenilworth Road on the first team and those type of experience, he was just, he'd turn up at our youth team games on a Saturday morning when Marv and the first team were playing on a Saturday afternoon. That's how much he cared about the academy. So, but in terms of probably the player to manager to play under with this team, so to manage this team, say, it would have to be Wenger.
Yeah, I'm going to say that.
Just because the players almost take care of themselves, and he's got this, he almost like taps into like a spiritual way of handling people, and he just draws the best out of people without them knowing it. I played under someone like Capello would be brilliant with organising a team and trying to but with these group of players, you don't need to do that. You just need to almost create the environment, let them feel happy, and just let it happen. And I think when Wenger had great players in and around his squad, he was just a brilliant manager.
I was just going to say, Matty, how many times in your time did he get angry and just lose it? I just can't imagine Wenger coming in, going and screaming and shouting. He just seemed so calm and measured and just spoke like this. And
he would, but every now and then you'd see him get angry on the rare occasion. Yeah. And he would always want to come in, have first couple of minutes of quiet. Pat Rice was like chomping at the bit, wanting to jump in and dig someone out, or that tenacious element that he had as an assistant manager. But you so many times see Wenger just say to him, "Pat, no, leave it." He'd want to let it stew and let it calm down. Let the players say something. Then the players might have a row or a discussion, or compliment each other or whatever needed to be done. And then he would say his piece just before going out, and it would be a very calm environment, which is what he liked. I do remember challenging him once as a young player because I wasn't playing enough, and I remember having a go at him we'd come in on Sunday morning to train the players that didn't play on Saturday. So I was a bit raw anyway. We trained and something had happened, and I remember pulling him after, and we got into it was a heated discussion, and I remember going away from training thinking, messed up there. Like, I don't have done myself any favours. I was probably 20, 21. And I was coming into my own where I think I hadn't got enough game time. And I think one of the centre-backs had got injured and he played someone else, and I was angry about it. And we got into that kind of dispute. Didn't end particularly well. And then I came in on the Monday morning, and he didn't really speak to me, but we trained, went through the week, and then he picked me on the Saturday. And I was kind of a bit taken back. And he said to me on the Friday on the way there, he went, what you said, I didn't mind what you said to me on last Sunday because it showed me that you really cared. And I like that. So he was that type of manager that wouldn't, would want to see, he would always be analysing your behaviour as a person.
What is your most memorable Luton game and why? It's
Luton game. Would you say my most memorable Luton game, or
and why? But you've got 2 minutes of I'm
honest, I don't remember anything about that.
You don't?
I'm very, very little. I'd have to say one of my most memorable Luton games. I actually did make another senior appearance in the Anglo-Italian Cup.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Who was that against?
That's a flashback from the past. That is. That competition.
I think the team were called Chesnia.
Yes. Was that in Italy or at Kenilworth Road? Where was that?
Italy. I was away in Italy, and I played centre back, or I might have played left side of three. Darren Patterson played.
What was the score? Do you remember the score?
We were chasing it a little bit. I remember the night before we had nowhere to train. We went the day before. We ended up training on like a car park or something in the dark.
Oh gosh!
Yeah.
Wow, really?
Yeah, it wasn't the best prep. It was a funny place as well, and I was only young, and so I remember playing in that game.
That's excellent. So, listen, I just want to say, Matty, thank you so much for coming on here and picking your best 11. A lot of supporters and listeners who the clubs you play for would like to know or love to know what you're doing now, if you're involved in the game in a coaching way or if you're whatever you're doing. So just, I mean, if you could just finish up now, just letting us know what you're doing now, sort of thing.
Yeah, I do work in the media. I do some co-commentary quite a bit, various other bits of kind of football-related media work from studio work, but predominantly the commentary I like for BBC, for the Radio 5 Live. Also, if some of your listeners are overseas, I do quite a lot for PLP as well in terms of co-commentary. So some of the games that would air in Australia or Asia or Africa and places like that, all across the world. I do a fair bit of commentary for the Premier League games. So, yeah, I mean, I'm enjoying that side of it. It keeps me busy, keeps me in football and watching it, and allows a nice family balance as well.
Excellent. Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time, Matthew. And is there anything you want to say to the fans at all? To give you the final word.
No, my main message to the fans is, hope to see you all back soon in these strange times. So let's
True.
Football's such a positive thing in all of our lives, and especially for the fans as well. So just hope everyone well and hope to see you all back in stadiums soon.
Thank you so much for your time, and thank you very much for picking out Matthew Upson's My Best 11.